this idea that, but you all, not you all, but now it is, well, Biden's that one poll showed him at 33%. The average is 44, 45%. I don't believe the polls.
I'm not quite sure what the disconnect is between the accomplishments of the administration and this Congress and some of the, the polling and the ongoing hand-wringing.
Mr. President, what do you say to Democrats worried about the midterm? What do you tell Democrats worried about the midterm? We got a story to tell. You got to tell.
Well, the disconnect is that inflation is rising and interest rates are going up and people are feeling it. It seems. If you look at the latest Quinnipiac poll, the president's job approval rating stands at 33%. If you break that down, Hispanics are at approval of 26%, independents 26%, ages 18 to 34, 21%. The RCP, Real Clear Politics average direction of the country, 27% say right direction, wrong track, 64.9. And the average on the economy for the approval, 36%. This is an average of recent polls, President Biden on the economy. Those numbers are not good heading into a midterm election season. Let's bring in our panel. Guy Benson, political editor at townhall.com, host of The Guy Benson Show on Fox News Radio. Leslie Marshall, Democratic strategist, and syndicated radio host Hugh Hewitt. Hugh, what do you think about what the administration is saying and doing in reaction to some of these numbers?
Well, the reality of the inflation number, Brett, and the appearance of the president are colliding. And now it's a question of what sinks faster, the president's approval or the Moskva, the Russian warship that went to the bottom today. Guy tweeted out earlier today that if you look at those numbers you just put up, it's the youngsters, the 18 to 34-year-olds that are hemorrhaging, Latino men as well, but the youngsters. And if you think about an 18-year-old voter who doesn't much care for the opinions of his 38-year-old parents or his 58-year-old grandparents, when they get up to their 78-year-old great-grandparents, they lose confidence. And the president's frail appearance and the reality of 8.5% inflation is just slaughtering his approval rating, and rightly so, because there are many things he could do that he doesn't, and therefore the price the Democrats will pay in November is going to be steep.
Leslie, our friend Tom Bevan at Real Clear Politics, we're all a little cynical at times, but Tom tweets out, President prediction, Biden's approval rating is so low with 18 to 34-year-olds, he will have no choice but to forgive a huge chunk of student loan debt after Labor Day to try to help Dems avoid complete disaster in November. Buy that?
I like Tom, and I don't buy the reason for it. I mean, student loans was something that the progressive faction of my party wanted, and you might, and not just that, the voters of the Democratic Party, and not just Democratic Party, but students, the youth out there, and that is the number that concerns me. I must say, Brett, a couple independent and youth voters, and then if we break it down to suburban voters who are independents and among the youth, that 18 to 21-year-olds, that concerns me. Look, my party has 90 days to turn this around. I know what history has shown when it comes to whoever's in power and what happens in the House and how many seats you lose. I think we talked the other day about biblical proportions, and I certainly don't want to see that. But I think a lot of Americans, are going to go with what they feel. And it doesn't matter who's in power. They're going to blame somebody, and they're going to blame the party in power. Even though inflation, to Jen Psaki's point earlier, is multifaceted. The government does have some blame. Federal Reserve has a lot of control and blame. They were very passive, and they should have. Many people were saying, economists were saying, raise interest rates before this. In addition to that, we have corporations. And then, of course, we have the pandemic, and now you add Russia, Ukraine to the mix. But we as consumers, and I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, okay? When I was a little girl, I remember picking up a little teacup, and my grandmother said, made in China, that's junk, put it down. And we as consumers need to really try and buy American more, and that will push these corporations to stop outsourcing as much and to produce more American goods here that are going to be better made, and then we're supporting people here that are making those products rather than supporting people in China making those products.
I doubt you'll get a lot of pushback, actually, Leslie. Guy, Associated Press, thinking small. Biden scrounges for ways to break through. All the policies Biden is touting will have direct impact on American lives, but they also fall far short of goals that Biden set for himself when taking office. Taken together, they show how the White House is trying to regain momentum at a time when Biden Biden is under pressure to recalibrate his ambitions. What I never really understood, guys, when he came in and all the articles were Biden is going to be the next FDR, even with these majorities that were so small in the House and the Senate, he was going to suddenly have these big ideas that came across the finish line, and it never happened.
Well, to use a sports analogy, you'll sometimes hear about a team reading their own clippings, reading their own press, starting to believe it, and then cutting corners and failing. That's what happened here. Biden believed his own press. He liked this notion of being the next FDR. Maybe I can be more consequential than Barack Obama. Let me try it. And it's been a big failure. And the fact that they're trotting out lines like Putin's price hike to blame virtually everything on that, anything but him, I don't really have the energy even to refute it every day because it just isn't working, right? If it were actually gaining some currency of the American people, perhaps I'd be more concerned, but it's not. And I would just direct you to a piece today in the New York Times. Stephen Ratner, major economist under the Obama administration, this is a Democratic economist, who looked at the situation right now. He's worried about a recession heading toward 2024, and he points to the inflation problem right now, and he says this, just quoting, "This is the price we pay for poor economic policies delivered by the White House, by the Congress, and by the Federal Reserve." And he calls the $1.9 trillion Rescue Act, exclusively passed by Democrats, quote, "an extraordinary policy mistake that will go down in history." That's an Obama economist just speaking the truth. Biden can talk about Putin till he's blue in the face within the context of inflation. Most voters aren't buying it.
Yeah, Mark Penn, a former Clinton advisor, says he sees a tornado against Democrats in the midterms if these numbers continue, and he thinks they will. All right, Hugh, last thing, I want to just get you real quick on Twitter. Elon Musk just tweeted out this. If current Twitter board takes actions contrary to shareholder interests, they would be breaching their fiduciary duty. The liability they would thereby assume would be titanic in scale. This is quite something to watch real time. Tweet by tweet, Hugh.
Well, on the one side, there's the panic on the left, which is amusing. But on the other side, the reality is what Elon Musk just said. Corporations owe a fiduciary duty to their shareholders to maximize value. He's put a very good offer on the table. If they don't come up with a better one, they will be flooded, rightly, with lawsuits. But it is both a social and economic story. But he is right on the law. Shareholders own the company, and the board must act in responsible fashion with care towards Elon Musk's offer, and I hope they do.
Fascinating to watch. Panel, as always, thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.